know. It's like it's midnight out there. All right, we're about to begin. Thank you all for sitting down. Okay, we're ready, Reverend.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Chairman Peter, Board. I would like to call to order the July 12, 2017 meeting of the Committee on Strategic Planning and Service Delivery. Would the Secretary please call?
Yes, Mr. Irvine will not be here today. Mr. Peterson?
Here.
Ms. Alvarez-Rosales?
Here.
Chairman Miller?
Here.
We have a quorum of the committee with 3 members present.
Our first order of business is the approval of the committee minutes of March 8, 2017. The minutes were previously distributed. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second.
And second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez-Rosales?
Yes.
Chairman Miller?
Yes.
The motion to approve the March 8th minutes passes with 3 yes votes.
Our next order of business is a review of an ordinance authorizing the third experiment for bus route number 31 to 31st Street. Carol Mosley is our presenter. Carol?
Thank you, Reverend Miller. Good morning. As Reverend Miller stated, this ordinance will authorize a third pilot for the 31st Street bus route, which currently runs between the Ashland Orange Line stop and the Lake Meadows Shopping Center on King Drive. Service is provided at 30-minute intervals between the hours of 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. The ridership target is 830 rides, and the route has had good ridership during the months of November, January, February, and April, averaging over 75% of the goal. However, I also note that the ridership is heavily composed of IIT students using UPass, and we do see ridership drops during periods when IIT is out of session. I'm here with Brian Steele, who's our Vice President of Communications and Marketing, and he's going to talk about our efforts to promote the number 31 route.
Directors, good morning. Brian Steele, Vice President of Communications and Marketing. Just wanted to give you a brief overview of what we're doing to promote the 31 route. We've undertaken 2 separate marketing campaigns, one for each phase of the pilot service. We're using a little bit of the playbook that we used for the number 11 promotion, but obviously we're customizing it for the 31st Street route. We've been doing a lot of grassroots outreach, door-to-door distribution, meetings with elected officials and local stakeholders, as well as a lot of social media. Just to recap, back in phase 1, we created a separate campaign for the 31 route that included flyers, posters, social media, digital screen advertisements. We had a separate web page on the CTA site, and again, that's when we began our door-to-door distribution of materials. Just to recap, this was the campaign that we came up with, Reasons to Ride the Number 31, in which we highlight the shopping, educational, and recreation opportunities along the route. We translated those materials into some of the languages that are predominant in the coverage area of the route, Spanish and Mandarin Chinese. And again, the digital advertisements went not only on the buses themselves and at some external locations, but also at these rail stations. And again, we heavily promoted via the web and social media. For phase 2, we've updated our tagline, Ride With Us, number 31. Again, using really the same toolkit that we used for phase 1, but we've expanded it further. One of the things that we're working on is outreach to some individual large stakeholders along the 31st route. We've been in contact with the Chicago White Sox to find out if there's ways that through their channels, they already promote CTA in general on their website, but we're asking them to consider doing some specific promotion for the 31 route. Additionally, we're looking at areas along the corridor where there's concentrations of stakeholders. For example, the intersection at Halstead has a number of restaurants and shops, so we're going to be targeting some of the specific businesses there. As Carol mentioned, obviously Lake Meadows will have a heavy presence. So we want to help find individuals that will amplify the message about the service, particularly particularly during the summertime months. And again, as you can see, we're using the full toolkit that we used before: social media, digital ads, and at the bottom is an important one. We've made contact with the South Loop Chamber of Commerce to see if they can help amplify our efforts. The new creative, different color, some changes, but the basic idea is still the same. We want to show the route, and we want to give some examples of things that are along the route. And again, as we did with the first phase of materials, we were translating it into Spanish and Mandarin Chinese. Another idea that we came up with is we've created a social media template for individual businesses and stakeholders to use for their social media audiences. Basically, we've got these filters, and we've provided them some copy and images. So anytime that they do a distribution to their membership list, to their customer base, whatever the case may be, they can use standard template language to promote the route. And that's an overview. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, Brian, could you go back to the first slide? That was, one of the groups that, and it might be in the community groups that came early before the board, was the faith-based community. I think it would be important, especially the pastor, I can't think of his name now, but if he would convene or work with the alderman to convene some of the faith leaders there in the community. You know, again, I think going 4 blocks north, 4 blocks south of the 31st Street route, but trying to convene some of the faith leaders to get out the word to their congregations as well about, you know, our outreach effort to get more people, because we did have some pastors come before the board who, prior to us putting the 31st Street bus back. So I think that would be another group in the area important to reach out to.
I believe Reverend Galke.
Yeah,
if
Tom
I pronounced
Galke was
his
the person that's
name
been
correct.
here.
Yeah, we've been in contact with him. I don't know if we've already contacted him about this second phase, but are sure that we will reach
Yeah,
out to
I would
him
say
and his colleagues.
Reach out to Alderman Thompson, again, having him maybe convene a meeting, a community meeting of faith leaders for us to come out and talk with them about seeing if they could get some of their members to ride.
Certainly, we can do that. Thank you.
I have a question. Have we, and I'm not sure if it's the same area, but it reaches that area, Alderman Solis's office, have we contacted? his
We did with
office?
Phase 1. I don't honestly know if we have yet for Phase 2. We just recently finalized materials, but we can definitely contact his office and again, hopefully use some of his outreach channels to promote, because you're right, even though it's not directly there, it's proximate enough that there could be some ridership demand.
Right. And then I'll give you a few names of people that I know that live there that are part of larger organizations that might want to help. I'm not going to put the names on record, but that, you know, have a large base of outreach that might be helpful as well to get the word out.
That's appreciated.
They
Thank
live
you.
in that
Thank
area.
Any
Yeah.
other questions? I had also recommended the 35th Street, the police headquarters. I had given that recommendation.
Absolutely.
And you've got what, De La Salle is here?
Yes.
De La Salle, right? So you've got a few institutions that just, that's a good pastor.
Thank you very much for these ideas. We'll make sure that we execute all of them.
Okay. Since there's no further business to be before this committee, may I have a motion recommending committee approval of this item and placed on the office for the board approval?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Roll
Yes.
call, please.
Call the roll. Mr. Peterson,
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez-Rosales,
Yes.
Chairman Miller.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 3 yes votes. Just need a motion to adjourn then, sir.
There's no further business. Can we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I think you need a second, but okay. So.
Okay, all in favor said aye, so we're adjourned.
Aye.
Thank you very much, Reverend. Just hold up off a minute, Alex. Let us know when you're ready to go to the next committee meeting then, because we're done with strategic planning. We'll go to finance next. You ready? We're ready, Alex.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I would like to call to order the July 12, 2017 meeting of the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Will the secretary call the roll, please?
Yes, Reverend Miller.
Here.
Ms. Irvine will not be here today. Ms. Alvarez-Rosales.
Here.
Mr. Peterson.
Here.
Mr. Youngblood.
Here.
Chairman Silva.
Here.
The committee has a quorum of 5 members present.
Our first order of business is the approval of the committee minutes of June 14, 2017. The minutes were previously distributed. I have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Will the secretary call the roll, please?
Yes, Reverend Miller.
Yes.
Ms. Alva Rosales.
Yes.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Youngblood.
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 5 yes votes.
Our next order of business is the review of the finance report. Jeremy, good morning.
Good morning, Chairman, Board. I'm Jeremy Fine, your CFO, and I'll walk through the May returns through the FAB report. First up is the returns on the revenue side for the month of May. As you see here, fair and past totals are down slightly, but at a lower rate than what we've seen in prior months. The reduced fare subsidy continues to come in approximately half of what we anticipated. And then non-fare box revenues, you see those are up almost $1 million due to additional revenues coming in from platform advertising. So overall, you see revenues for the month down slightly at $1.4 million. We continue to see an improvement on average fare, and the free rides are less than what we saw last year at this time. With regard to year-to-date figures for revenues, we continue to see fare and pass totals down to budget, about $7.7 million for the year-to-date. Again, reduced fare subsidy coming in approximately half of what we had anticipated, as we've discussed in prior months. And then non-fare box revenues are up $3.5 million on a year-to-date basis. But again, just pointing out that May was almost $1 million of that. So again, we're seeing some nice improvement on that line. Total revenues down approximately $10 million. And again, we'll talk about how we're more than offsetting that on an expense side, and we'll flip to that now. With regard to May expenses, on a variance to budget basis, we see favorability on the labor line. Materials are down slightly for the month, but as we've talked about in prior months, this ebbs and flows depending on the actual purchase date of some of those materials. Fuel and power continue to be strong performers for us on a monthly basis and on an annual basis, as we'll talk about. And then provisions for injuries and damages and security services coming in favorable. And then other expenses, again, this has been our bread and butter on controlling those contractual obligations and ensuring that we continue to see favorability on that line, and most importantly, on the bottom line here. So other expenses, total operating expenses are favorable for the month of May of $2 million. If you offset that versus our revenues that we previously talked about, we're up for the month, or favorable for the month, $600,000. On a year-to-date basis, you see the line items, somewhat similar trajectory as we talked about for the month of May. Labor slightly up, materials slightly down. Fuel and power, again, strong performers on a year-to-date basis. And then again, that other expense line, a very strong performer for us. So that has allowed us to have a favorability for a year-to-date basis of almost $11.4 million. So again, offsetting the revenue declines that we've seen, we're still up on a year-to-date basis, $1.25 million so far this year. For our three commodities that we purchase, again, as I highlighted on the prior page, we see positive variability, favorability on a monthly and annual basis for all three commodities. Again, we are fully purchased for what we anticipate for the three commodities for 2017. And over the last several weeks, we've been able to continue to purchase small increments of fuel and power to get closer to what we would anticipate locking in for the 2018 budget. So again, it's a great time, historically low prices across the commodities, so we've been able to take advantage of that, and that's allowed us to garner budgetary savings for this year, and again, locking in very low rates on the going forward basis as well. Are there any questions?
I got a question.
Sure.
Since we just recently passed the state budget, what type of financial impact would that have moving forth on our revenue stream?
So we are still assessing the full impact. The state legislation was approximately 1,800 pages. through the 3 bills that were passed. So we're still kind of working through the full details of that. But for 2017, it should be a fairly moderate amount, modest amount of impact. So we'll be able to continue to work through the full impact. But again, for 2017, we should be able to address that. And then we'll be incorporating the 2018 and beyond impacts on future budgets as well.
Should we expect, okay, the government, okay, to pay us what they owe us? Should we expect, okay, that the government will increase, okay, what they owe us, or they're gonna keep us at the same level
For the reduced.
for the next?
So we do see some, impact on the reduced fare subsidy. That's, as you know, have been coming in approximately half of what we expected in the prior 3 years. That, again, based on the initial reading of the bill, would again continue on into the state 2018 cycle. So that was a 14 million hit on prior budgets, and that looks like that would be replicated in the 2018 bill. And then there's some impacts to sales tax and to the public transportation funding as well. So again, we're continue to work through the specific impacts as how they hit the CTA with our RTA folks as well. So they're helping us assess the full impact.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, if I could just add to what Jeremy is saying here, I think there are a couple of bottom line points I'd make about the budget itself. One, there's no question that there's a reduction in subsidy to transit. When Jeremy says we're still figuring out the impact, we're still trying to understand exactly what that reduction actually will amount to for the region and how that plays out for CTA. Based on our preliminary analysis, we don't think that it's going to have a significant impact on this year's budget, but we're still working through those numbers. Mr. Youngblood, with regards to your question about payments, I think there are 2 aspects to that. One is payments going forward and whether or not we're going to receive those payments on a timely basis. The other is, which is more of an RTA question as a CTA question, is the payments that are already owed to us that are in arrears. That we're also still trying to get a handle around in terms of the cash flow and how that's going to work. And depending upon the answers that we get from RTA, we may have to come back to you to have conversations about how that may or may not impact CTA. The bottom line here is that Jeremy and his team are working through right now to mitigate the impacts that we may see for the rest of this year. And obviously for next year, it'll be incorporated into our bigger budget discussions as we go forward.
So with regards to owed to us, what is that, 1.5 years, 2 years?
The RTA is about 18, the state is about 18 months behind in the payments to RTA. Now, that has not impacted CTA because RTA has basically been floating the money to us through their borrowing capacity. The challenge is that they're reaching the limits of how much money they can borrow. And so if the state doesn't start paying on a regular basis the money that they owe us, then RTA may not be in a position to float that cash flow problem to us, which means we may need to look at options that we may have to help support that.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got a question. Jeremy, I'm looking at fuel, power, and I know we always talk about the fact that we're able to save money there. But if I go back, any of the other commodities, I'm just trying to think, we've had good winters, so I don't know when do we start to purchase windshield wiper blades, when we start to purchase salt, all of those things as we gear up for, the season, maybe the fourth quarter of the year. Have we seen any reduction? Have you been able to save any money there besides fuel and power? But have you seen what's happening in those markets as well?
So we continue across kind of all contractual obligations, looking at how we can continue to, best, appropriate whatever the commodity is. With regard to salt and things like that, you haven't seen kind of the fluctuation or kind of the historically low prices that you have in the three commodities that we highlight in the FAB report on a monthly basis. But again, we do look at ways that we can better procure it. We're looking at other ways that we can, look at, procurement through other, joint ventures and whatnot. So, we are looking at ways that we can do things, but that would allow us to secure a lower price. But those three in particular are the ones that you're seeing kind of historically low pricing on, and that's why we highlight those. And also because the fact that the order of magnitude of our purchases in those three commodities are much bigger than, some of the others that you highlighted.
Yeah, and the only reason I mentioned it a little bit because of what Dorval had mentioned in terms of, you've got the issue of prior to the budget passing, RTA borrowing, getting us money. Now we've got an issue of what we're gonna get going forward from the state. And we also know that the budget pass does have some reductions to transit.
Yes.
And so again, it's just trying to figure out other ways, especially getting through the rest of the year, if not even looking at 2018, of other areas that we can also focus on to kind of, for savings as well, because again, there's going to be a hit. We've got to worry about money going forward, money past due, and all of that. So just, the fuel power, clearly, that's been, I think, bread and butter the last few years in terms of saving money. The fact that we've had mild winters the last 2 to 3 years, relatively speaking, but I just think right now, we've got to look at everything to see where there are additional opportunities. as well.
Absolutely.
In ridership, okay, we still not getting real movement there, okay, I mean, and I have read, okay, that the government, okay, is thinking, okay, of start getting more oil, okay, so that will even get, okay, prices probably lower, okay. Is that going to impact us, okay? Is price of oil, okay, one of the main reasons, okay, why the ridership, okay, is not getting up? Can you talk a little bit about it?
So oil in general has been at kind of historically low rates. It's been bouncing around a little bit. It came up and then it dropped back down for the 4th of July holiday. But we've been operating in a very low gas price market for quite a while. I believe that Carol Morey probably could, highlight a little bit more of the impact on ridership in particular.
So nationally,
Cora.
there's a very strong correlation between gas prices and transit usage. You might recall in 2012, when we had a historically high ridership, it was also a time of very high gas prices, although there's certainly other factors that are affecting our ridership at this point. Low gas prices are one.
Thank you.
Do we have an idea where the biggest impact is coming? I know that there's a study and we're looking at different numbers, but
We're continuing to assess that, and we'll report back to the board.
okay.
Now, with the modernization of some of our buses, would you think that that will have an impact on some of the fuel costs as well, since we're gearing more towards electric, more so of gas?
We've seen an impact on fuel and electricity due to the implementation of new technology, so that does have an impact, yes.
Any other questions? If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for approval?
We just need to thank Jeremy
I'm
for
sorry,
that one.
thank you,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
So moved.
Our-
Did you need a?
No,
Not yet.
we don't
Okay.
need it, no. Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing a co-promotional advertising trade agreement with Bank of
Excuse me, Director
America.
Silva? I think maybe that's why you said that. I think maybe the first action item after the finance report is the
Okay, I'm sorry.
is the capital improvement program
Okay,
amendment.
let's get in,
Okay.
let's get it right here.
Okay.
An ordinance, our next order of business is an ordinance amending Ordinance 016-136, approving the fiscal year 2017-2021 capital improvement program. Jeremy.
Thank you. As part of the 2017 budget approval process, the board approved the 2017 through 2021 capital program totaling $3.5 billion. As we have done from time to time in prior years, we're asking for approval to add approximately $22.7 million of new funds to the capital improvement program. The new funds come from two primary sources. Approximately $22.2 million come from the 2016 positive budget variance, and then approximately $500,000 comes from the form of a UWP, a Federal Unified Work Program grant that we received in the form of $400,000 and then $100,000 local match from the CTA. So those aggregated together add up to the $22.7 million of additional funding added to the $3.5 billion CIP. And then there's also some adjusting and repurposing of funds within the CIP that we do from time to time as well. Are there any questions?
Questions, please? Okay, if there are no further questions, may I have you to place this item in the omnibus for approval?
So moved.
I'll second.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing a co-promotional advertising trade agreement with Bank of America for the 2017 Bank of America Marathon. Jeremy.
Thank you. This is an exciting co-promotion that we do on an annual basis. I've been joined by Mike Gwynn, the Director of Revenue, who will walk through some of the specifics and in addition to one new addition to what we can do with the marathon this year.
Good morning. Mike Gwynn, Director of Revenue. Presented for your consideration is a co-promotional agreement with the Bank of America for the Chicago Marathon, which will be held on October 8th, 2017. This is the 17th year that CTA has partnered with the organizers of the Chicago Marathon to promote the event, which is celebrating its 40th anniversary this year. CTA is providing $26,609 in unsold advertising on buses and trains in exchange for approximately $60,000 in promotional value from the marathon. This value to CTA will include sponsorship recognition in the 150,000 spectator guides that are distributed, a link on the sponsor webpage, our logo and link on email newsletters sent to all participants, and a booth at the Marathon's Health and Fitness Expo at McCormick Place. As Jeremy mentioned, new and exciting this year is we'll be offering the ability to purchase fares in advance of the marathon on marathon websites. This will be in addition to the other outreach efforts that we do at the airports and other key locations to help people get on the system and use it for the event. This promotion will allow CTA to reach out to an estimated 1.7 million people over the marathon weekend to encourage current CTA customers to use CTA for non-work trips. It will also encourage tourists and new riders to use CTA to follow runners along the race and to access other marathon events. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Any questions?
How far in advance is the promotion going to begin?
We'll probably, it's an October event, so we have to accommodate fulfillment, so probably sometime in August, but we'll time it to the most likely time for people to be paying attention, but sometime around then.
And we're reaching out to marathon runners and possibly their families and anybody else that's coming in.
Yeah, it'll primarily go to the participants, but it will be opportunities for them to buy fares for their whole family.
So this is great. So this will be prior to them even arriving here, right?
It will allow them to make that decision and get comfortable with taking CTA before they even land in Chicago.
That's great. Great.
Yes, Bank of America has got an application, okay, that they follow, okay, every one of the runners. Can we be part of that application, okay, and have our name, okay, there, okay, so everybody that follow, okay, runners?
Well, we will definitely talk to them. That application is really cool because it allows you to go and follow. We'll make sure that all the CTA viewing stations are listed in there, and we can actually target some of our communication via social, some of just our other communication to say use that and CTA to track the runners and cheer them on.
Any other questions?
Will there be something on their website as well to promote the CTA sponsorship of the event?
Yes, we're listed as a co-sponsor, and then there will be special carved-out information on the travel page about CTA and about fairs.
So, and I know we've discussed this here, so thank you so much, because it gets me excited to see that we're reaching out to people before they get here, especially since tourism is up. So is this the beginning of more to come? Are we looking at other opportunities?
The Marathon is a fantastic partner, and we're looking at the pre-sale of fare as really a pilot to look at other opportunities and other big events to maybe roll it out for that as well. It's exciting to have a willing partner who is working with us to promote it and coming up with new ideas for us to discuss.
And we seem to partner up with the city on a lot of different events, right?
Sure.
So there are other, okay, great, thank you.
Like you said, this is the first time that you've had the opportunity to do this part, and you said it was about a $60,000 advantage that you overall that you looked at for CTA.
In promotional value, we're getting out more than we're giving to the Marathon, but we're also giving them the ability to move all of those customers and all those viewers throughout the system and really access the city for that weekend and make it a fantastic weekend.
Any other questions? If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing a sublease to Franklin Energy Services LLC of a portion of 120 North Racine Avenue, Chicago, Illinois. Carol?
Carol Morey, Chief Planning Officer. So as stated by Chairman Silva, this ordinance would authorize a sublease to Franklin Energy LLC of a portion of 120 North Racine, which is a building owned by CTA. CTA's control center is located on the third floor of the building, and the first and second floors were leased to Sterling Racine LLC in August of 2015 after the Chicago Building Department vacated the premises. The board has approved 2 prior subleases of portions of 120 North Racine. The proposed tenant, Franklin Energy LLC, designs and implements residential and business energy efficiency programs for utility clients. Sterling Racine will continue to be responsible for the payment of rent and its proportionate share of maintenance, operating, and utility costs for the building. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
What's their current rent so far?
So the current rent for Sterling Racine is just over $2 million a year, including their share of maintenance costs as well.
Any other questions? If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing a lease extension for property located at 1120 East 89th Street. Carol?
So this ordinance would authorize a 5-year extension of CTA's lease of 1120 East 89th Street. This site is currently used as a training center for CTA's maintenance personnel, including bus, rail, power and way, and facilities maintenance. The current lease expires on September 30th of 2017. The lease extension is at the current annual rental rate of $355,627.04 with no escalations, and includes an option to renew the lease for an additional 5-year period at the same rental amount. So basically, we're going to keep the rent constant over a 10-year period under this new arrangement.
Why is that? Why would we keep the rent the same over that period?
So we're leasing this space.
Okay, it's for us, okay.
So we were able to conclude pretty effective negotiations with
Okay,
them.
I was gonna say, I thought we were leasing this something else. We need revenue. All right, that makes sense. It's a good.
Any questions? If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for approval?
So moved.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with PACE the Suburban Bus Division of the Regional Transportation Authority for local match funds related to the South Holstead Corridor and enhanced bus feasibility planning study. Karen?
So this ordinance will authorize an intergovernmental agreement between the CTA and Pace Bus for a local match requirement for the South Halsted Bus Corridor Planning Study. CTA received a UWP grant, which is a federal grant administered by CMAP, our local metropolitan planning organization, for a study of bus service on South Halsted for fiscal 2017. The grant of $800,000 requires a local match of $160,000, half of which will be provided by PACE. South Halsted is an important shared corridor for CTA and PACE, and both agencies will benefit from improvements along the corridor. CTA will provide the project management for the study. We'll use internal resources for that, but we'll coordinate closely with PACE in the project development and planning process. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions? If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing a project undertaking agreement for a contract for the Public Building Commission of Chicago for bus washers and high-speed doors for the 77th Street Bus Garage and high-speed doors for the Kedzie Bus Garage. Chris.
Chris Buchel, your Chief Infrastructure Officer. So this ordinance authorizes the city's Public Building Commission to manage a construction project at the 77th Bus Garage and the Kedzie Bus Garage to install high-speed doors, overhead doors, so the buses can exit and enter the garage, as well as a new bus washer at 77th. The budget for this effort is $7.5 million, and the duration of the ordinance covers the length of construction, which is approximately 18 months. So the effort offers advantages to the authority in that it provides this, while we bid this project and will ultimately recommend award shortly, the PBC also co-promoted the project to a different group of contractors and subcontractors, and anytime we get more contractors bidding our work, that has an inherent advantage to the authority, both in terms of pricing and in terms of outreach to different contractors, to different DBEs, and it generally strengthens our program as a whole. Any questions?
Questions, please?
Chris, not so much on this, and I don't even know if this falls under your area, but again, it gets back to this whole thing about, now I'm just sort of fixated on trying to find ways to save money. Who would be the person, I'm just trying to think, changing out the lights, energy efficient, changing out windows, because some of the garages, the one at 77 and Vincent, I think dates back to 1902. It's probably one of our oldest garages. Have we looked at how to try to retrofit some of the older garages? I know the work that you're doing with the doors and the washing and all of that, but I don't know if you or whoever it falls up under could report back to the board. What are we doing to kind of retrofit some of the older garages? Like the one at 74th and Damon, I know is a new garage, probably built in the 90s, but again, the one at 77 and Vincennes where the windows, the lighting, you know, what are we doing as it relates to that?
Well, the high-speed doors at Kedzie do impact energy use. So those doors offer both flexibility to operations in terms of going up and down quicker, but going up and down quicker means the heat loss of the building is significantly less. So that is part of the energy considerations for that, both operational. There are considerations for that project that are both save energy as well as improve our ability to put buses on the street. I know that smaller efforts are underway, and I think very good efforts through Don Bonds and the operations department. You know, I think they are changing out a number of lights at a number of facilities. They're making incremental improvements as funding and opportunities allow. I don't know if Jeremy would like to come up and talk a little bit about that. I know that
and
he's
again,
been
it wasn't
intricately
a
involved.
question. Again, it's not something that you've got to do today because I didn't. You know, I just started to think about after hearing Jeremy, your presentation, know what's going on at the state, again, just starting to think through ways where we can continue to find savings, squeeze savings, and I think about our entire portfolio, and again, it made me think about with 77th Street Garage, and we've got older garages, you know, what are we doing system-wide, again, to kind of review those, look at them, and find ways for savings.
Absolutely. That's something that we're having those discussions with the operations folks, facilities management, to see what kind of opportunities that there are out there so that we can capitalize on those energy savings projects. There is some definite budgetary benefit of doing those types of projects.
And when you've completed that, it would be great just to maybe, you know, take some time to brief the board in terms of what we're doing system-wide.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, just to amplify a little bit on what Jeremy and Chris are saying, I've actually asked staff to look at doing some sort of overall audit of all of our facilities to identify ways in which we can basically use, you know, more energy efficient equipment and fixtures to reduce our overall, you know, electricity or power use in general. I think, as Chris pointed out, one of the ways you do that is obviously by closing off doors that let heat and things escape, particularly or air or cool air escape in the summertime, which this project will do. But I think there's a lot more what I would call low-hanging fruit out there that we can pursue, and I think that there are services that we can procure in addition to our own internal resources to basically make sure that we've got a overall strategy about how to do that, and that we align that strategy and those potential savings with our budget and our capital expenditures in a way that feeds into a bigger overall plan. I think to date it's been more of an ad hoc type of an approach. When we have opportunities to replace something, to build something, we address it there. But I think a more proactive, sort of forward-leaning approach can be much more effective and can allow us to better prioritize where we should make those investments in order to get the type of savings or maximize the type of savings that we can get. And I agree that we're happy to report back to the board on our overall plan to do that.
Yeah, because I know at one point at Rush, you could actually work to bond against future savings. And that's what made me think about it, is that if there are savings to be realized, you could actually borrow against those potential savings to come up with the upfront money that you need for some of the capital improvements. That's what made me really sort of think about it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You know, just as a follow-up to what the chairman is saying, and as a suggestion, I'm obviously in technology, so I hear, you know, a lot of different things. But one of the things to maybe take a look at are geo audits, where they really track everything. You know, I know that we're doing a lot manually, but as a suggestion, we might want to take a look at that. And that would track security as well as efficiency, wireless and electronic, and, you know, all kinds of other things. So there's software out there that might be of assistance to us that we might want to take a look at, maybe hadn't thought of. But I think that's a great point. And if there's possibility of, you know, bonding against, you know, future savings, that's great. So that's a suggestion. Take a look at.
That's great.
Any other questions? If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for approval? Thank you, Chris. Our final order of business today is the review of 4 purchase and sales award recommendations. Presenter, Ellen McCormick. Good morning, Ellen.
Good morning, Ellen McCormick, Vice
morning.
President of Purchasing.
We will start with contracts number B1 through B2. Any questions?
Yeah, on B1, does this change order close out the contract between Walsh and 2-in-1? I know that we now have Passion and Millhouse out there, so I was just curious, is this the last change order we're going to see from that contract?
Yes.
Okay. That's all I needed to
Next will be see contract number H1. Any questions? No questions for that one, but let's move to,
Well, it's a $6 million contract. Trying to sort of walk us through, so the work here is going to, is this what Chris talked about? This is high-speed doors and the Kedzie bus, same contract?
It is.
Okay.
So this is the actual procurement. If you
Okay.
authorize this, then we can. we
Okay,
have the
got
authority
it,
to
got it.
transfer.
Okay, all right.
finally, let's review contract number I1. Any questions? No questions. If there are no questions, if there are no further questions, may I have leave to place these 4 contracts on the omnibus for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Since there is no further business to come before this committee, may I have a motion to recommend board approval of the omnibus?
So moved.
Second.
May I have a second?
It's been seconded.
Will the secretary call the roll, please?
Yes, Reverend Miller. Ms. Alvarez-Aliz.
Yes.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Youngblood.
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Yes,
The motion to approve the omnibus passes with 5 yes votes.
we are adjourned.
Just we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank,
Now we're adjourned.
All right.
Is it
We
10
are
o'clock?
adjourned.
I'll never
No,
watch it.
it's-
It's 10 o'clock. You got it.
It's 10, it's
If it's 10, then we're ready.
10:03. All right.
If it's 10:03, then we're 3 minutes late. We're ready to start, Chairman Peterson.
All right, thanks, Greg. I'd like to call a regular scheduled meeting of the Chicago Transit Board for July 12th, 2017. Would the secretary call the roll?
Yes, Reverend Miller. Mr. Irvine will not be here today. Ms. Alvarez-Rosales.
Yes.
Mr. Silva.
Here.
Mr. Youngblood.
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes,
We have a quorum of the board of the 5 members present.
thanks, Greg. The next order of business today is public comment. Greg?
Yes, we have one public comment speaker who had contacted me, Ms. Cecilia Butler. If you would like to please address the board, thank you for coming.
Good morning, Cecilia.
Good morning,
Morning.
Chairman.
Morning.
Well, I'm here, like I've been here for over 20 years, talking about the Green Line Station. Now, I have no idea how many landmarks the Chicago Transit Authority has control of, but I know you do have control of one, which was built in 1892 for the World's Fair, which has been empty since 1995, and we, the community, have been trying to be part of that. Since the University of Chicago has moved into Washington Park, they have now control of a block. And the good federal government has given CTA and the citizens of Chicago millions and millions of dollars to renovate that location, the Green Line Garfield location. And with that, the University of Chicago, from what I understand, I thought that the decision was not going to be made until 2018, but from what I understand, the decision has been made to give the University of Chicago authority over that property. Now, a landmark is there because of people being there. I've lived in Washington Park well over 30 years. Some of you might have spent time in Washington Park. And to give a landmark to a university who had to come over a park, a 300-acre park, to take control, just isn't fair. Now, we and the Washington Park Historical Society, for years, decades we can say, have been collecting artifacts for our community. And if you are collecting artifacts, where do you want to put it but in a landmark location? Now, we do understand that the university has lots of power, lots of money, but I'm sure in a 12-month period, the CTA, who is still in control of that location, can see to it that the citizens that live in Washington Park can have some time in that location. So all we're asking is for the Chicago Transit Authority to use your power and to insist that the university share that location with the community. We don't want 6 months. We barely want 3 months, but we know we want at least 2 months minimum. And we know what month in particular that we have to have, and that's February. For those that don't know, that's the month that African Americans celebrate. Well, the information we have, we know that no one in the city of Chicago has it, because we have Olympic paraphernalia that we in Washington Park was part of. And all we want to do is to set up a display 2 times, maybe in a good year 3 times a year. But you don't get an opportunity to work with the University of Chicago because they don't like to work with people. But I know who they will work with, and that's you. So, on behalf of the residents of the Washington Park community who have been coming to this boardroom since 1995, asking about this location, we are asking you to support the community and tell the University of Chicago, give the community who is deserving of this location to share it with us. And they've already started their campaign as to what they're going to do in the location. So this is something now, like I said, I thought I last heard that the decision wasn't going to be made until 2018. But Mr. Gates and the university, for their arts block, started a campaign that they will be in control of it. And how insulting to a community who lived there and who had to see the university buy up lot by lot by lot. I mean, it's not like the university buildings are next door. No, they have to go past a 350-acre park to get to our community. So, again, all we ask is that you, CTA, insist that the university share it with the community.
Okay.
That's all.
Cecilia, let me first of all thank you for coming down. As you know, I grew up in the Washington Park area, 56 and Prairie, 225 East 55th Place, 5327 South Prairie. I grew up in Washington Park. Couple of things. First of all, we didn't give them control of that historical site. We issued an RFP for folks to come forward to help with renovating that historical site. They were the winning bidders that came before this board last month. I've spoken with the U of C on a number of occasions and told them, as well as Alderman Dow, that we want community participation at that location. There will be community participation. They have a 10-year contract with a second 10-year option. So they don't have control. We are going to spend millions renovating that location, but I would love a copy of what was put out, because they might have control of the land that they own, and I know the land from Prairie to King Drive. As again, grew up there in the 70s, so I know the area well, but they don't have control of that historical station. Where I caught the L, going to Inglewood, going to Dyett Middle School. They do have a 10-year contract. They did win the RFQ to come in there and to renovate it, but that is in conjunction with us, not on their own. So we will be working with them. Please give Greg a copy of that so that we can have it. I know you're going to stay in touch with Gerald, and as we work with them to move forward, but I will absolutely relay the message. And I know Alderman Dowd, and I did talk with Pat, we expect community participation. And I think what you're just asking, to have 2 or 3 opportunities during the year to do something that is community focused, is not asking a lot. So again, we will take that up. And Dorval's here, he's hearing it, and Carol Morey, who was involved in the RFP process, Gerald Nichols, who you've worked with, I think we've heard you loud and clear in terms of as this moves forward. Again, thank you for coming down.
And thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Butler. And that concludes the public comment section today, Chairman Peterson.
Thanks, Greg. The next order of business today is the approval of the June 14, 2017 board minutes that was previously distributed. I will now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of June 14, 2017.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Reverend Miller.
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez-Rosales.
Yes.
Mr. Silva.
Yes.
Mr. Youngblood.
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 5 yes votes.
Thanks, Greg. The next order of business is executive session. It is my understanding, Karen, that there will be executive session today.
Yes, Chairman, there will be a short executive session pursuant to Section 2, Paragraph B5 of the Open Meetings Act.
Thank you, Karen. I'll now entertain a motion to recess into executive session.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Reverend Miller. Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Alvarez-Rosales.
Yes.
Mr. Silva.
Yes.
Mr. Youngblood.
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 5 yes votes to recess into executive session. And as Karen said, I don't think it's going to be very long. Okay, would everybody please be seated? We're about to return to open session here. Remember your cell phones. Right there.
Okay. So now entertain a motion to return to open session of the July 12th, 2017 regular meeting.
So moved.
And second, Reverend Miller. Yes. Ms. Alvarez-Alice.
Yes.
Mr. Silva.
Yes.
Mr. Youngblood.
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
That motion to return to open session is approved with 5 yes votes.
Thanks, Greg. The next order of business today is board item number 4A. Karen?
Yes, this item was discussed in executive session. It is for the approval of an ordinance recommended by planning and law authorizing relocation expenses associated with the acquisition of 3242 North Wilton Avenue for the Red and Purple Modernization Project in the amount of $125,000 to Elizabeta Cruz Bright.
Thank you, Karen. I now entertain a motion to approve an ordinance authorizing the relocation expenses for the acquisition of real property located at 3942 North Wilton, Chicago, for the Red Purple Modernization Project.
So moved.
Second.
And seconded, Reverend Miller.
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez-Alice.
Yes.
Mr. Silva.
Yes.
Mr. Youngblood.
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
The motion to approve 4A passes with 5 yes votes.
Thanks, Greg. The next order of business today is board item number 4B. Karen?
Item 4B is recommended by Planning and Law, which is the authorization of acquisition of a permanent air rights easement over the property located at 1042 West Roscoe Street in Chicago, again for the Red and Purple Modernization Project, in the amount of $41,000. This parcel, parcel 28, is owned by Preeti Sema Apartments LP.
Thank you, Karen. I now entertain a motion to approve an ordinance authorizing the acquisition of permanent air right easement over real property located at 1042 West Roscoe Street, Chicago, Illinois, for the Red Purple Modernization Project.
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded by Ms. Alvarez-Alice. Reverend Miller.
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez-Alice.
Yes.
Mr. Silva.
Yes.
Mr. Youngblood.
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
That motion for 4B is approved with 5 yes votes.
Thanks, Greg. The next order of business is a report from the Committee on Strategic Planning and Service Delivery. Director Miller?
Yes. The Committee on Strategic Planning and Service Delivery met earlier this morning. The committee approved the March 8, 2017 committee minutes. The committee also reviewed an ordinance authorizing a third experiment for bus route 31 and 31st Street. The committee placed this item on the list and recommended board approval of the item. That concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Director Silva. Next order of business is a report from the Committee of Finance, Audit, and Budget. Director Silva?
The Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget met earlier this morning. The committee approved the June 14 committee minutes and reviewed the finance report. The committee also reviewed all of the following items: an ordinance amending Ordinance 016-136, approving the fiscal year 2017-2021 capital improvement program, an ordinance authorizing a co-promotional advertising trade agreement with Bank of America for the 2017 Bank of America Marathon, an ordinance authorizing a sublease to Franklin Energy Services LLC of a portion of 120 North Racine Avenue, Chicago, Illinois, an ordinance authorizing a lease extension for property located at 1120 East 89th Street, Chicago, Illinois, an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with PACE, the Suburban Bus Division of the Regional Transportation Authority, for local match funds related to the South Hosted Corridor Enhanced Bus Feasibility Planning Study. An ordinance authorizing a project undertaking agreement with the Public Building Commission of Chicago for a contract for bus washers and high-speed doors for the 77th Street Bus Garage and high-speed doors for the Kedzie Bus Garage for purchase and sales award recommendations. The committee placed these items on the omnibus and recommended board approval of the omnibus. That concludes my report, Chairman Peterson.
Thank you, Director Silva. May I now have a motion to approve the omnibus as stated by Director Miller and Silva?
So moved.
I'll second.
Second. Reverend Miller.
Yes.
Ms. Rosales.
Yes.
Mr. Silva.
Yes.
Mr. Youngblood.
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
The motion to approve the omnibus passes with 5 yes votes.
Thanks, Greg. The next order of business is the construction report. Chris?
Chris Bouchel, your Chief Infrastructure Officer.
Mary Person, Director of Diversity Programs.
So we'll start with the 95th project. This project continues on budget and on schedule. We've seen good progress in both the south and the north terminal. The south terminal is substantially coming out of the ground. We're seeing building steel go up as well as steel for the south bus bridge. Here you have the southwest corner. This is a retention area that's underneath the main bus berthing spots. You saw similar photographs last month on the other side, on the east side, where we were burying these retention areas. There's storage for stormwater. It's obviously a large paved area. Progress on the north terminal as well. These are caissons. You can see in the bottom left, one of the caissons sort of poking out of the ground there. They obviously go deep into the ground and provide support for the new north terminal. All those caissons are currently completed. South terminal platform installation. Those of you driving by have probably seen that platform sort of growing to the south there. So good progress here as well. This area is complete. You see the progress up here. The platform part of this is moving along. So you see the actual terminal steel starting to be erected. Good progress there as well. In these photographs, you can see the new steel coming across to the south terminal bus bridge. So my apologies to anyone that was driving by there at 4 o'clock in the morning. When we erected the steel, we did have to stop traffic temporarily for safety reasons. As you can see, the lifts went very successfully. The steel is in place. The Wilson project continues on schedule and on budget, making good progress towards opening the various terminals and tracks associated with the project. You can see the main station kind of taking shape here, open, light, modern building that will provide great service to our customers. Same thing on the sunny side, aux entrance also coming out of the ground. You can start to see the entrance itself take shape. This picture is the new track 4. This is the final of 4 tracks that we're building. This is a new direct fixation system that also foreshadows some of the work that we'll do further north here on the RPM. As well, we've got 2 platforms out there. This will be a transfer station, and it has we're currently using the west platform, so the east platform, you can see it's on the north side, and it is also marching south and making good progress. Ravenswood Loop Signal Upgrade Project, we are still in the ground with this project in that we're building various foundations and constructing steel to support the new relay houses. We're also running cable, and then kind of in the back of house, the contractor is putting together the various technology that will go in those houses, the computers, the programs, the racks and so forth, wiring the houses. So you're still seeing photographs here of the fundamental structural work that supports the project, signal platforms and so forth. These are the types of things we need air rights for, so they hang out over the edge of the structure. So just to give you a visual on that. Illinois Medical District, work continues on the Damon auxiliary entrance. We'll have an announcement pending on that in terms of the opening, so work is progressing well. You can also start to see kind of the visual on what that station house is going to be looking like, really transforming our presence out on the Forest Park branch of the Blue Line.
So before you move away from the Damon location, I also got a notice that they're getting ready, CDOT is going to do a Damon streetscape.
Mm-hmm.
Are you aware of that?
We're working with CDOT on the various aspects of their street projects in that area,
Yeah, because I was just thinking when they get to where I station, it would be great if they could do something, because we're almost at that overpass. I just wanted to make sure there was coordination between CDOT and us with our existing work going on.
Yeah.
And that they haven't started, I don't even know when they're gonna start their work, but I just got an email last week from our internal capital person about the CDOT streetscape, I mean, the Damon streetscape.
Yeah, that may be a little south of there too, but in any case, we'll coordinate with them and make sure that as their work touches ours, it serves our customers' interests. Quincy is still in the ground as well. You'll continue to see photographs for a couple of reports here that reflect the various pieces of foundation work. Obviously, we're working in the loop. There's a lot of challenges, not the least of which is the Federal Reserve directly to the east of our site. So just working through all those foundation issues, the project continues on budget and on schedule, although cold to schedule. So that concludes my report.
All right, any questions for Chris or Mary? Mary, I'm assuming that we're doing fine with DBE participation on all of our projects.
Yes, if you see, we included for every construction project under the DBE goal, we have whether the DBE is on track, whether they're closing out, things of that nature.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Yes. Our next order of business today is new business. Is there any new business to come before the board, Greg?
No, sir, there's not.
Since there is no new business to come before the board, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 We're adjourned. Thank you.